I've got to clear up this misunderstanding right now. Hey guys, welcome back to the DrCliffAuD vlog. This is vlog number 288, and today I need to make sure that I clear up a misunderstanding about the HearingUp Network. But before I do me a huge favor, click the like button, really helps out the channel. And if you are not yet subscribed to the channel with notifications turned on, go ahead and do that as well. It is greatly appreciated. So, what is prompting the topic of today's video? Well, I ran into an issue just the other day in the clinic where I had a patient come in from a different state. So they literally flew to Arizona to see me. And here's the thing, I didn't know beforehand, but this individual had purchased a pair of hearing aids from a provider in the HearingUp network, and they essentially were not satisfied completely in their experience. And so I was like, oh gosh, well, so first of all, it is my clinic's protocol not to schedule any patients who have gone to a HearingUp provider to come in to see me to get a second opinion. So when I saw that in the note, I was kind of like, man, what the heck happened? How did this person get through to me when they had already gone to a HearingUp provider? Now, here's the thing. If someone is on my HearingUp network list, meaning you go to my website, hearingup.com, you search for a provider, and you click on your area, and you find a provider in your area, and you go to that person who's listed, I have full faith that that provider is going to do an excellent job in treating your hearing loss. With that being said, it's not very common that we get people who said that they've gone to a HearingUp Network member and want to come in and get a review from me. So we actually have our Applied 360 review process specifically designed for people who are unhappy with their hearing treatment and they want to come in to get a second opinion. And they know that we have a variety of different verification measures that we can use to identify if they're actually performing their best with their hearing aids. So this individual comes in and he starts telling me all about his hearing aids and how the provider that he's gone to is a very nice individual, but he just feels like there's still something lacking. He actually decided to purchase a pair of Phonak Audeo Sphere hearing aids after my review video about a year ago at this point, and he got those hearing aids right out of the gate. But one thing that he told me is that the provider that he went to expressed to him that they weren't very familiar with the Phonak Audeo Sphere devices. In fact, they didn't really regularly work with Phonak to some degree. Now, you guys have heard me talk about this issue before in the past, which is if you're going to a hearing care professional who has no understanding and no familiarity with a certain hearing aid brand, then you probably don't want to get that particular brand from them. You tend to want to go with whatever brands they work with more regularly because then they're more familiar with the capabilities of those devices. That aside, the individual came into me and was telling me about all these different issues that they're having with their hearing aids, and I'm like, that doesn't sound right. I'm like, who did you go see again? And he told me the name of the provider, and I'm like, that's not a provider in my HearingUp network. I don't know who that person is. And so then he told me the name of the clinic. And when he told me the name of the clinic, I'm like, okay, well, that is vaguely familiar. Let me look it up. And so as it turns out, this happened to be one of 3 clinics. So, you know, there's private clinics that are out there and they have the same name and they have different locations, but they're all owned by the same person typically. And they have a variety of different hearing care professionals that typically work with them. In fact, you can have one location that has multiple hearing care professionals. The HearingUp network vets the individual provider. So let's say that there is a clinic, in fact, these 3 clinics, one of which this person actually went to. If there's 3 clinics with 10 different providers and the one provider is in the HearingUp network who works in one of those clinic locations and he ends up going to a different provider at a different location, still the same company but different location, different provider, then I can't give any type of assurances that that provider is actually going to follow comprehensive best practices. Now, as it turns out, this clinic was purchased by someone else, and the provider who was essentially in the HearingUp network has since been removed from the HearingUp network because the new clinic owner didn't find any value in having their provider be listed as a best practice provider in my network. It is what it is, I'm over it. But the point here is that this individual thought that they were getting best practice audiologic care because they went to a clinic that had a HearingUp provider in it at the time. But if you're not going to be seen by the HearingUp provider, I cannot provide any assurances that that individual is going to follow best practices like I mentioned earlier. Because when I'm putting providers through this process of vetting them, I actually vet the individual. They have to have an interview with me. They have to take a webinar. They have to pass a quiz on the webinar. They have to complete the application, sign off on the affidavits. The individual does all these things. I do not essentially verify that clinics are going to be listed on the HearingUp Network website. Why? Because I cannot hold an individual accountable if they don't do something right. I've had issues in the past where I had someone go to a HearingUp provider, they didn't like the experience, they reached out to me, then I reached out to the provider and I was like, hey, this individual was upset with their care, what's going on here? And if it was someone who hadn't gone through the vetting process, they would be like, who the heck are you? Like, leave me alone, let me treat my patients the way I want to treat them. And honestly, all the providers in the network can still treat patients the way that they want to treat them. They just have to follow best practices when doing so. But let's get back to this patient's individual story. When I told him that I didn't know the name of the provider he went to, he's like, well, why did they schedule me with someone who wasn't in the HearingUp network? And I'm like, well, could have been a front office staffer on their first day. They may have felt like it was, any provider in their clinic is good, which there are probably other good clinicians inside of their clinic. Who am I to judge? But if they didn't schedule him with the one person inside of one of their locations that I know and trust, then I can't provide any assurances, like I said earlier, that he would actually get the type of treatment outcome that he was looking for. And sure enough, when I was putting this individual through my Applied 360 review process, I was finding a whole lot of egregious errors in the programming of his devices. Now, I could tell that the provider he went to had at least done realer measurement. That's like a basic minimum starting point, but he was still so far off of his prescriptive targets, it wasn't even funny. None of the features were really optimized fully for what he was looking for, and they were starting to give him bad advice on, like, he was getting notifications that were too loud, but they never went into his phone and adjusted the notification volume. They basically just said, turn off your Bluetooth so you don't get the notifications. And I'm like, what the heck is going on here? Nevertheless, what we're actually going to be doing with this patient is that we're going to start him over from scratch. We're going to keep him in the same hearing aids that he has right now. We're going to order him new custom ear molds because I didn't really like the performance of the ear molds that he was currently wearing, and we're going to get this patient back on the right track. So what should your takeaway be from this particular story? Well, if you are looking for a hearing care professional who follows comprehensive audiologic best practices and who has been vetted to do so, then you need to make sure that you go to the actual provider who is listed on HearingUp.com. It is not good enough to just go to the clinic. Okay, now if you call the clinic and they offer you an option for a different provider other than the provider who's listed, that is totally on you if you're willing to go to that provider. I will say this, there's a higher probability that the other providers in that clinic that has a HearingUp provider in it are probably going to be a better option than going to some random hearing care professional in a clinic that has no vetted HearingUp Network members. But I want to hear from you. Have you actually gone to my HearingUp.com website and found a provider in the HearingUp Network and then called their clinic and scheduled an appointment with a different provider? If you did, I want to know what your experience was.